But yeah, I mean, it doesn't seem like there's anything that really phases Brock, including the game that he is throwing 4 interceptions in. Again, sometimes you show who you are when things are going at their worst, right?
Yeah.
It's easy to maintain a strut when things are going well. It's another thing to not have a rattled demeanor about you when things are going poorly. And I was really impressed by Brock about that. And I know that this is people saying, a week ago that sounded like excuses. This week, it sounds like some evidence of significant quarterback play being in that young man. It's the clarity of hindsight is amazing. It really, truly is. Speaking of Brock, Larry, he's the first 49ers quarterback with 30 touchdown passes in a season since Jeff Garcia back in 2001. The franchise record is 36. That was Steve Young in 98. Young did it twice. Garcia did it twice. Joe Montana, John Brody, and now Brock Purdy is in that 30 touchdown neighborhood. He also became the 49ers single season passing yardage leader, as we've already discussed, and he did it in 16 games. So no Roger Maris asterisk needed in any way, shape, or form. And now we get to the real impressive number. His 8 games with a passer rating of 120 or higher are tied for the second most in a single season in NFL history. I mean, prolific efficiency is what the 49ers have come to expect from this guy, and he delivers more often than not. It's been one of the coolest things I have ever seen since covering Bay Area sports, any team, any season. In sports, we're programmed to expect things, but we're also programmed to not expect things. Even while Kyle Shanahan was cutting Trey Lance, he couldn't have expected this from Brock Purdy. He's making the hardest choice of his career, and it turned out even better than even Shanahan could have possibly imagined. This is one of the greatest quarterbacks in the history of the 49ers. That's a big mouthful of quarterbacking compliment.
No doubt. I mean, that's why this, it's funny. It's like it hit me watching this guy, in his rookie year that, just in camp, and in mini camp, that what we were looking at was nothing normal. It wasn't normal to see a guy drafted last show up in mini camp and literally master every drill like he had been there for 5 years. Right. And that's what he did. That's what this guy did. And when I kept seeing it, and I'm like, am I watching what I think I'm watching? And, you doubt yourself because it's like the too good to be true thing. How many things in life are too good to be true? In some ways, Brock Purdy's too good to be true. And immediately you're like, oh, there's got to be another shoe to drop here. This has got to be, fool's gold. There's got to be some return to the mean, or what, there had to be some bounce back,
market correction,
something. And it was, everybody was logical to be expecting that and to be waiting for that. And I understood that, but, the more I saw this guy, I saw this guy's the real deal.
Yeah.
He's got, not only does he have all the physical traits that you're looking for, arm strength, quickness, body strength. He's kind of a thick guy. It's as far as he's not super tiny, even though he's not the biggest broad-shouldered 6'5" guy. He's not small. He's 225 pounds or whatever.
He's got some size on him.
He's a decent sized player, and then he's also got great quickness. But his true gifts are, the heart, the brain, everything that
you can't see.
Stuff that you can't see. And that's why people miss, because you can't see what makes him great. It's not readily apparent unless you actually watched Iowa State football. And how many of us actually watched Iowa State football? Not very many. And so it's like, I've really laughed to myself when people scoffed when I was like, man, this guy's a little bit better than you think, and it was like, oh, come on. It's either Lance or Garoppolo. And yet I've been at all these camps and all these practices, and this guy was clearly better than Garoppolo. much more consistent than Lance, much, much better of a playmaker than Sudfeld. And it was like, I'm sitting there watching this going, am I watching this right? And sure enough, here we are, a couple of short years later, this guy's not just a starting quarterback of the team, he's a star. And if he wins if he finds a way to finish this and get this done in Vegas, this guy is going to be the biggest story in the NFL, regardless of team.
Which means he's the biggest story in American sports.
Right.
That's what that means.
That's an amazing distance to travel from Mr. Irrelevant last pick in the draft. Nobody really believes in you. You're going to get cut for Nate Sudfeld to you made the team. You've won games. You've won playoff games. I mean, if by chance this guy gets to and wins the Super Bowl, 2-0 last year, I guess 2-1. He would wind up being 5-1 in the playoffs if he wins the Super Bowl, with an unbelievable statistical resume and an incredibly strong regular season record, if you want to give him that. So it's an amazing story. It absolutely is an amazing story. And then to see him get the game ball last night, to see Trent Williams embrace him outside the locker room and just say, hey, man, way to go, to see his teammates kind of support him. Debo walking in with a Brock Purdy for MVP jacket that Kyle Juszczyk's wife made. I mean, it was easy, but it was classic. And Brock Purdy is just continuing to play at a very, very high level. And people laughed. I said he was better than Herbert. I had Bruce Jenkins send me a note. Oh, you may want to rethink that. Stick to baseball, big boy. I got it over here. You're going to be just fine over there. I'm not saying that, Herbert sucks, but I mean, Brock Purdy's playing at a very, very high level, and just because he's not 6'5", 230 with an absolute howitzer doesn't mean that in any way he's some low end second tier quarterback.
Right. And I think one of the biggest reasons why Brock Purdy gets denied by people who want to deny what they're actually seeing is because they're overly invested in pretending that they know about the draft and selling the draft as its standalone media event that it's become and the importance of the draft. And Brock Purdy has essentially spit in the eye of all the draftism out there. To me, I think it's the exact opposite. I really do. Like, this just shows you the importance of the draft. Forget the fact that he might have been passed over all of those rounds. The point is you can find an NFL player anywhere in that draft. Drafts are important. And Brock Purdy, I think, gets scored against because he's diminished the draft, when I think if you want to look at it from the other perspective, he has illuminated how important it is. You can find a franchise-changing player in the last round of a draft. It's not just Tom Brady anymore. It happened again. It wasn't lightning. Lightning is struck twice, I guess. So
isn't it classic? Isn't it? I mean, not to interrupt you, but isn't it classic how we're in a market now, Damon, where Trey Lance and James Wiseman were drafted high, and Trace Jackson Davis and Brock Purdy were drafted almost at the very bottom.
Yes.
And yet Trace is worlds better than Wiseman, and Purdy is worlds better than Lance.
Yeah. No, it's really something else. There's an awful lot of correlation there for sure. You're probably aged out of having seen the movie Ratatouille, Larry. Have you ever seen Ratatouille, the Disney movie? Pixar movie?
I did. Believe me, I've got 4 kids. I've seen Ratatouille.
Okay,
and it's a very well-made flick.
It is, and the whole point of Ratatouille, the restaurant critic at the end.
It's better with a couple gummies, but yes,
like all Disney movies. Yeah. But look, the whole point of Ratatouille is the very embittered restaurant critic who thinks that greatness must be, French-born, blue ribbon trained chef, and that's the only kind of cuisine he's interested in. The entire, aha of that entire movie is him realizing, not everyone has greatness in them. Like, that's a lie that a lot of people are sold. Everyone can be great. No, not everyone can be great. Greatness is not an option for everyone. But greatness can come from anywhere. It can come from anywhere. Look at me getting all ratatouille on everyone, but it's the truth. Greatness can come from anywhere. It's not within everyone, but it can come from anywhere. And
Wake up, jump the shark. It was the Ratatouille show, and their numbers plummeted from there. It was the famous Ratatouille Monday on January 1st, and it took the whole thing down.
do you see how stoned Damon and Larry were for that January 1st show where they talked about Ratatouille for 2.5 hours?